we will call the June 18th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. And we have a roll call, please.
Angie Holt. Here. Frank Pulver.
Here.
Bill Van Wy. Sandy Harrison.
Here.
Tyler Lanning.
Here.
Suzanne Davis.
Here.
Jerry Yoder.
Here.
Jason Carnahan.
Here.
Bill Hartman.
Here.
Alicia Rogers. Mike Makowicz. Andrew Cruz.
Here.
Chris Gomer. Meredith Wright here.
They will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now I have a moment if anyone would like to lead us in a quick word of prayer.
Okay, I'll do it. Father God, we just come to you this evening, asking you to be with us, Lord, in here to make decisions, favorable decisions for you, Lord, and favorable decisions for this county. We thank you for all the things you give this county, and we can't wait to see all the many blessings you give that is to come. I want to pray in your name. Amen.
Excuse me. In your packets, you should have had the minutes from the April meeting. If everybody had a chance to review them, if there's any questions or concerns, or I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 17th minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the April minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Also, the claims for April and May were included. I would take a motion to approve those as well.
I move to approve the claims for April and May.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve claims for April, May. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. No old business, correct, Chris? New business was some discussions on UDO wordings.
So the first one is for short-term rentals. Back in, I think it was enacted, I can't remember. Nonetheless, no, it's in 2018. Anyway, Indiana Code has laws in their books for short-term rentals, such as what you would get from Airbnbs or those sort of platforms, and allows them basically by right, by Indiana Code, unless they meet certain criteria. Uh-oh, there he is, Bill Van Wy.
I lost my phone and I don't know how to do anything. So I'm totally out of it tonight.
That's all right. That's all right. There's differences between what would be owner-occupied short-term rentals. So that would be if you're living in the house and just renting out a bedroom, versus it being a non-owner occupied where you're renting out the entire house and you're living somewhere else. And there's various standards for those. Basically, we can't permit, or I guess we can't not permit, owner-occupied rentals. So we can't stop somebody from renting out a bedroom or bedrooms or rooms within their house for people to stay. But we can regulate non-owner occupied short-term rentals. So my proposal is that we have, and there's language in the Indiana Code that I won't go through, you all got it in your packets, as to what it is we can't enforce, permit fees, the application, all that stuff that our legislators have put into their codes. But I think we need to add language in our ordinance, or the only other real option is if people do want to do this, or we get complaints regarding short-term rentals, that they would just be automatically okay. If we don't have anything in our ordinance, there's really nothing to enforce. But I propose that we put in language about short-term rentals. You see in the definitions what I've proposed, and then kind of obviously the difference between the owner-occupied short-term rentals and the not owner-occupied short-term rentals. Add them as permitted uses to basically all of our residential zoning districts, which includes the 2 agricultural districts, our rural estate, our low-intensity, medium-intensity, village residential, multifamily 1, multifamily 2, and then mobile home parks. And then really just adding some development standard language that I didn't really think there was much that we needed to put other than what's in the Indiana code. I didn't want to make it obviously more difficult than what is in Indiana code, or add more standards than what's in Indiana code. But requiring an improvement location permit for that short-term rental, maybe needing to require additional information that meets the requirements of the Indiana code. And it's really that 24-11, which has language in there about the permits, the application requirements, and what you can ask. We have had a couple complaints about short-term rentals in DeKalb County, and more so about people not being able to find them, and these renters going to other people's houses, thinking that that's the rental they're supposed to be at. Mostly because there's no signage, bad signage, no address sign, bad address sign, or GPS is just taking them to the wrong location. It could be a number of reasons. So I think we should have not a signage requirement, but if they do want to have signage, that it can't be greater than 20 square feet. And then obviously shall have the property address sign displayed per the county ordinance. And then a potential short-term rental permit fee, and that would be for the life of the short-term rental. It wouldn't be a yearly fee, but of $150. Anyone have any questions on kind of the generalized proposed language? Adding it to the UDO, not adding it to the UDO? Like I said, if it's not in there, we really wouldn't have anything to enforce, so we wouldn't be really enforcing much anyway. But adding it in there does not really bring us into compliance with Indiana code, but aligns us with Indiana code.
Did you say that you decided on the permit to be for the life of the residence, then? Or is it gonna be 1 year?
No, it'd be
Annual, right?
just one permit fee.
Is it annual renewal?
No?
Doesn't here.
I thought it said
I know you
expires.
said yearly at the beginning, then like 36-1-24-13. Says the permit expires 1 year after the date the permit is issued.
Permit expires 1 year after date of permit issue. So it's annual, right?
So, and then it goes on to say, except for provided in subsection C, are you going to may charge a permit fee not to exceed $150 for each of the following: the initial permit and the issuance of a subsequent permit to an owner of the permitted property for the owner's previous, after the owner's previous permit has been revoked, but you may not charge the permit fee for renewing a permit, including renewal of a permit that has expired. So what I have found, lost my cap. What I have found, especially with, and we've had this discussion through BZA with our dependent housing, is having an expiration on that just means, like, we'd have to have create some sort of database, which we could do, and do a yearly, like we do contractor registration forms, mailed out on December 1st, that your short-term rental, if you still have a short-term rental, you need to come get it permitted. There's no permit fee to renew, but just updated information. So we could do that.
It just seems, if you do that, it just seems like it would probably get too complicated.
If you did what?
To keep updating. Because, I mean, to me, the permits, people get permits and then just sort of let them lapse.
Yeah, we get that. I think that if you would do it as a yearly thing, meaning, so if a contractor for us registers on December 1st of 2023, they would then have to renew on January 1st, 2023 if they want it. So it's still, they're still, does that make sense what I'm trying to say here?
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
they would renew on a January 1st date versus being their anniversary date of when they got their permit. Because then that's when it gets complicated, is when you have this person applied on January 1st, this person applied on January 15th, and then February 13th, and you're doing it on an anniversary date versus just a calendar year date. So I think that's what we would want to do, is a calendar year versus a
Anniversary.
anniversary date. And to be honest, I'm not sure how many there are in DeKalb County. I'd have to go on Airbnb and look. There's probably just a handful anyway.
Allen County's, this is the first year they're taking the builder's license permitting and stretching out throughout the year depending on your last name. So they start January 1 with the A's and B's and then go January, February, and every month
Yeah.
there's some renew and
Probably because they have so many to renew.
yeah.
That doing it all in December or January makes it nearly impossible for their staff to do it.
This is the first year they're doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know if, maybe I didn't catch it. Are you going to prorate that first year if it's only a quarter of a year or half a year?
We'd have to put it in the ordinance if we would. We don't have that in the ordinance for our contractor registrations, for instance.
You're only charging once,
We only-
right? You're only gonna charge the $150 originally.
Yes, and
Right.
then there's no fee to renew.
So
Right.
there's not really a reason to prorate it if you're only charging that one time.
Yeah, yeah. I did just kind of want this part to be more discussion on whether it's something that we wanted to bring forward, and then I can work up some language that dives deeper into some development standards. This was more or less just kind of talking points for now to see if it's something that we even wanted to bring forward to have as a proposal. So basically, this one, would there be two discussions? We'd have this discussion on do we want to have it, and then do another discussion on what the type of language that we want to propose looks like. And then if we like that, then bring it forward. So if you guys are okay with doing this, I can dive deeper into this with Andrew too and get his opinions on that we're matching the language through what is in Indiana code and not overstepping anything.
I would think it would be a good idea. And some of the things I see now are that you can go camp on people's private property that they're renting out, like if they have a little lake or they have woods, you can come and camp there for a fee.
Yeah.
So that's not always renting a residence, a dwelling.
So in the Indiana code for this, it is it does say the owner's primary residence is offered to the public as a short-term rental. It doesn't say anything about their property.
Nothing in there seemed to reference allowing camping on your land, so
Right.
it'd be an interesting issue to look into a little deeper. I could see some health department issues with just having people, might just dump their sewage in the lake, or I don't know.
I don't know.
Local ditch, local swamp, I don't know. There would be no regulation at all of, it's different than a house, for sure.
What's that?
Did you have another one, right?
Yes, I do. If we're done talking. I'm just
Yeah, I
taking
think
some
so.
additional notes right here.
Oh, you're fine.
I agree that it makes sense to address this, have something definitive to
Back us up if we need to.
back us up in.
Okay. Okay. Next is our home-based business portion of the UDO. And there's a lot in here that I'm kind of proposing that we revise and have discussions on. One thing that Andrew and I kind of find funny is that the definitions for a home occupation, a home workshop, and home enterprise are identical. And while you don't want to have development standards in your definitions, those don't make sense to maybe have them be identical. It's just odd. And I had Meredith print off what the definitions are, so you have them in front of you, but
The definitions
basically
are
there's kind of three levels of a home-based business. There's kind of the home occupation that is maybe a seamstress or a music teacher or music tutor, or even a teacher that tutors in the summer. I don't know. And then a home workshop that might include, some sort of maybe a small engine repair shop that's in your garage, and people drop off, you work on one or two, and then you give them back. And then a home enterprise that's kind of takes over more square footage of your accessory structure, maybe a electrical business or a plumbing business that needs some office space and some storage. Doesn't have really people on site doing a lot of work, but it is your full-time job, where kind of your other two are I wouldn't really see them as being, and I say full-time jobs, but they're just different levels, and we need to kind of, I think, look at what those definitions are to see what how those different levels should be defined. So I do want to take a look at that, but I wanted to bring that to your attention, that I thought it was interesting that in our UDO, the three are defined exactly the same.
But the standards for each are different.
But the standards for each are different, correct?
But when you're looking at the definition, typically you want to have your definitions be different.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you have different standards for what they are.
Yeah.
So, so a home occupation is kind of our first level, and then they get more intense as you go from home workshop to home enterprise. We currently don't require a permit fee. We do have people fill out paperwork, so if they come in and say, hey, I just want to be a music tutor, do I have to do anything for the county to be licensed or something like that? We just have them fill out a home-based business application that has their contact information and what they're doing. That way, if a neighbor would call us and say, I find it odd that there's people coming in and out of their house at 8 o'clock at night or something, we can say, well, she's a music teacher, so she's got a home-based business for that, so I'm sure that's what it is, and maybe ease their, or bring a little comfort to them for a little bit. But so we don't require a technical permit, but we do require that application to be filled out. So I just wanted to add that to the approval process, and then work on the language for the standards. I'm proposing striking that no person other than occupants of the dwelling unit shall be employed in the home-based business, and proposing that the home workshop shall be operated by a resident of the property and no more than one on-site employee, associates, or partners of which do not reside in the home. Nothing really changing in the maximum floor area. With these, the character basically is the character of the property. So you're not changing the single-family home look. You're not changing the look of the neighborhood. You're not allowing flashy signage or building a commercial building on your property to house this. Basically, it needs to look like if you would sell the property, someone could move into it and still have a residence. No outdoor storage displayed. Here's kind of the external indications. There's no advertising signs, displays for the home-based business, except as what's permitted below in number 13 for signs. And this is all new, and for signage, they could have a wall sign not to exceed 6 square feet. So a 2 foot by 3 foot, pretty small. That would maybe just, again, especially in the county, people's get lost easier than they do in the cities. So with poor lighting, maybe their address sign isn't posted or GPS takes you to the wrong location. Signage would be important, I think, for these home occupations. So allowing a wall sign not to exceed 6 square feet, and then a ground sign not to exceed 10 square feet and 3 feet in height. Both of those shall not be illuminated. And then types of home occupations. This is kind of just a example, like an artist studio, dressmaking, professional office. And this is all what's existing in our UDO right now, what's not highlighted. Teaching a musical instruction, limited to 2 pupils at a time. This was something that Andrew proposed we strike because there is some music that is taught in groups. And I forgot what you said it was called.
Suzuki method, I don't know.
Yeah, Suzuki method. So there are some.
You can add it back in if you want. I just.
No. I think it's smart because you don't want to limit what people can teach, I guess. But barbering and hairdressing is already there. And then I propose we add other home-based business deemed appropriate by the zoning administrator. I'll take these one at a time for now so we can discuss the home occupation stuff now and see if there's anything that anyone sees as they would propose that we change. Oh, location, now that I'm looking at it. Number 6, propose that we allow them to have it in an accessory structure not to exceed the maximum floor area, and then that maximum floor area being number 4 up at the top, not to exceed 500 square feet. So if it can be in somebody's home, or it could be in the barn, shed, garage, whatever, I personally don't care where it would be located, as long as it just meets the 500 square foot size.
I'm curious about if somebody was doing something outside, like growing plants,
And selling them
they would eventually be offered for
could be
sale.
sold, then that would be considered agricultural. So like, we wouldn't regulate that. So if they're growing, like a nursery for flowers or something.
Greenhouse type of situation.
Yeah. Dividing up 5,000 hostas.
Huh?
Dividing up 5,000
Is
hostas.
that what you're doing right now?
Well, maybe.
So if you're doing that, if you're doing, kind of, let's take it in 2 steps. If somebody is dividing up their 5,000 hostas on their property and putting them on the side of the road that says for sale, no one's going to regulate that. Or if you put it on Facebook Marketplace that they're for sale, no one's going to regulate that. Now, if you are doing it as a nursery, as long as it would meet that 500 square foot threshold, or it would probably more fit from a home occupation to a home workshop or home enterprise, which would require special exception approval from the BZA. Because I'm assuming it would probably, the greenhouses at 500 square feet would be pretty small. There would probably not even enough room for the plant stand to be located. So it probably wouldn't fit under this. But depends on what they're doing and how much land or how much area they're taking up.
Does that seem to be one of the main separating factors for each of these? Is the size of space required? Is that maybe something involved with the definitions? Is that how we're going to separate them from each? Is that how they're like determined?
Well,
If
I
it goes
think that-
beyond that 500, all of a sudden now it goes from occupation to
Correct.
workshop.
So, well, it changes. So they vary because of the size of the area that you can work in, the number of employees you can have, and signage. So it's kind of those 3 defining factors. There are sale of products that change. So, in the home workshop, it's the sale of the product is limited to what you make on site. So if you are a small welder that welds tchotchke chimes for people's yards and sells them, as long as you're making it on site and selling what you do, you can do that. But I think the definitions need to probably have more in there as far as, and Andrew, help me out with what I'm trying to say here, more in there to help us define.
I mean, it's really
what
small,
the difference
medium,
are.
and
Right,
a little larger, but you can't use those terms. I mean,
Right.
that's not.
right.
But you could say,
Or simplified, you have to simplify the explanations.
could be.
Could
A
be,
couple of
or
definitions.
go the opposite way. Are they too simplified? Are the definitions currently too simplified for at least 2 of them?
Like
or
a home workshop could be, you could define it sort of as a home workshop is a home occupation that can have an extra employee and 1,000
Right.
square feet. And then you could say.
And you could say something like has additional
enterprises.
employees or a larger square footage,
Yeah.
versus you don't want to put in definitions that are also development standards. Meaning you don't want to put in the definition that you're allowed 500 square feet with 5 employees. You want to state, you're allowed additional employees and square footage of a garage or something. And then the home workshop, if you're allowed 10 employees and 1,000 square feet, you're allowed additional employees than what's in a home workshop and more square footage than what's allowed in the home workshop.
Yeah, I
So,
think,
you know,
yeah, defining it that way based on the smaller.
Right.
Might be the way to go.
And also maybe even include some examples of what they are. I think that would help too.
So what's the difference between that and a gun shop then? Somebody wants to put in their garage or in a,
It would be considered we treat those now, if like my employee Jeff has
because it had to be, before it was zoned, it had to be zoned commercial before they were allowed to put them in there on the lot.
So,
And that wasn't too many years ago. We turned down a couple of them because we wouldn't zone them commercial, and they had to be zoned commercial to put their business in there.
so ATF now doesn't require that.
So that's changed.
Apparently, yeah, because
So that was
ATF now just requires us that we have signed off on them doing that. So, for example, my employee Jeff he doesn't, well, I won't use him as an example. Somebody could sell guns, buy the guns, it's just kind of the middleman.
Yeah, he has
Yeah.
an FFL,
Yeah.
and he would be
Yep.
able to sell out of his
Yep.
house.
And we would treat that as a home occupation.
Hey, I did not know that changed.
Yeah, and I don't know when it did, but the guy that I've talked to basically just wants confirmation that they'd be allowed to do it, so we'd take it as a home occupation.
Really?
The home workshop is obviously, like I've said, a little more intense than the home occupation. Home workshops operated by the resident of the property and no more than 3 on-site employees. Maximum floor area, I've upped that from 500 to 1,000 square feet. And then added that they could have a ground sign placed at the property, not to exceed 15 square feet and 6 feet in height, and still not be illuminated. In the current language of the UDO, there was nothing such as in our home occupation, there's types. Number 14, there was not anything for home workshop or home enterprise. So if there's anything that you think you would like to see added as an example of a home workshop is, I'd be open to hearing those too. And then the home and the home workshop is reviewed and approved by special exception from the BZA, as well as the home enterprise. So home occupation is not, but the home workshop and home enterprise is. The home enterprise, which is more intense than the home workshop, is operated by the resident of the property and no more than 5 on-site employees. And then adding in there, I left the maximum floor area size to not exceed 1,500 square feet. And then adding in there language on the size of the ground sign, not to exceed 15 square feet and 6 feet in height. And I removed the part about being landscaped with evergreen plant materials because who's going to enforce that? You know, so it just, I think something that didn't need to be in there. One thing that I think to take note on too is this doesn't account for off-site employees. So if there would be a plumbing business where people come and pick up materials in the morning and then leave and they're off-site all day, that doesn't count. I would not count that against their number of employees. I didn't put that in here as an unlimited number of off-site employees because I think they'd be like, well, my employee works at the neighbor's house, so he's, it's considered an off-site employee. But I think people that would come to a job site, pick up materials and leave, plumbers, electricians, even construction, home construction-based businesses, would not count towards those number of employees. This would be more for if you had, your wife and another employee, or husband and another employee, doing office work or that sort of thing.
I'd like to address number 9
Yeah.
on all of these nuisance.
Yep.
I get calls. How would that be determined, remediated, whatever, when you have a neighbor that's files a complaint? What would be the process to settle that? Satisfy that complaint and determine, is it really a nuisance? Is it not a nuisance? Is it a complaint that's got an axe to grind?
Yep.
What are we going to run into there? Because we've already got calls, a couple calls on these kinds of situations.
Well, I think it would be dependent on, so for instance, the nuisance cannot create offensive noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odors, heat, or glare that would be a nuisance to any neighbor. I think if they would say, we're going to put up security lighting, that's going to be on all night, and that security lighting is going into neighbors' windows, that could be documented by the neighbor that's doing the complaining party, can take photos of the light shining on their property, and then they would have to bring it into compliance like anybody else that's not following the UDO. Offensive noise, I think if you would have somebody out there it's from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I'm trying to think of
Running a grinder,
a grinder
running
running or
machines.
something, yeah. Machines that are running and you can hear it from your swimming pool or sitting on your back deck. I think those are things that can be easily documented to say, okay, Mr. Smith, you've got a grinder running for 7 hours during the day. What's going on here?
Do we need decibel readings on something like that? What's too loud and what's not too loud? So how do we determine that? How do we track that? Or the neighbor, how does the neighbor?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to throw monkey wrenches. Noise, smoke, dust, odor. Odor's a big, that's one that depends which way the wind's blowing. If it's blowing right at him, it might be quite offensive. If it's not, 5 days a week may be a problem. But what's the guidelines as far as all these issues under that category as nuisance? Do we have to define guidelines as to how many decibels it can be or how much? I'm just asking.
Yeah. So what I would do is if there would be, let's say, take a noise, for instance, if they're sitting on their back patio, or if I take a recording and I'm sitting on my back patio trying to enjoy a beverage and all I hear is this humming sound that you didn't hear before or don't hear after this is done, for me, I would contact whoever has a home occupation and say, hey, just receiving some complaints that there's like a humming noise, what's going on? And if they can't remediate it, theoretically, the home occupations should not take away from the residential nature of a property. If you're getting into noise, vibrations, dust, odors, you should place these businesses in locations that are not going to care, for lack of a better term. And because these two things go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, I wouldn't foresee this happening at a home occupation, Yes, I could, but the home workshop and home enterprise, I would hope that at the BZA meeting, we would say, okay, so you're a welder. What type of equipment do you use? If this is going to be in your garage, is the garage door going to be open? I don't know. But if we receive complaints, I we would need to see, some sort of evidence that it's actually causing issues. That makes sense.
Well, you also have ideal, it's like if you're a welder or a woodworker, you're gonna have exhaust fans running too. And that's gotta be addressed because those are noisy too. Plus the other deal is like if you're a welder, I'm just using welder, but that ain't the only thing. How much of these permits are gonna add additional traffic coming in and out of that place, which would be kinda, ruining the atmosphere of the neighborhood if you have added 10%, 15%
Increase in truck traffic?
Traffic.
And that's what I would ask as bringing these to the BZA is what type of deliveries are you going to have? Do you have box trucks? Do you have semi trucks? What time are they coming? Is trash getting picked up? What time does your trash normally get picked up now? What's the additional trash you're going to have? These are the things that I ask them before we even go to the BZA so that the BZA knows that there's a box, that the only deliveries they ever receive are box trucks from Amazon. Or, but if they would get semi-deliveries, then the BZA would have to say, well, what's that going to do to neighboring properties? Are neighbors here to complain or to potentially have issues with this approval? If they're out in the middle of nowhere, like I'm thinking of Frank Nestor, for instance, and the slurry pond that the BZA approved. That wasn't a home occupation, but, literally no neighbors surrounding his entire property. So, that's the thing. That's something the BZA is going to take into account with these. And, just have to trust that they're going to make a good
We put
decision.
that into our covenants like we do our agricultural?
Home occupations?
No, the nuisance part of it. The complaining of neighbors
Bringing a business in saying,
no, the business was there before they moved in,
right.
what I'm saying.
So you're saying any platted land around the home-based business, should we mention it? Is that what you're saying?
If there'd be a home-based business there.
So you're protecting the business.
Yeah, if they, just like our agricultural
If they're there
code,
first.
they know that it's there before they move in and they can't object to it.
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's a discussion for the plan commission. I mean, I don't know.
How's that
How many
different?
complaints a day do we get, Meredith? From neighbors?
Sometimes it's a lot.
Yeah. So,
I'm just wondering how that differs from our agricultural covenant that we put in every plat.
well, our agricultural covenant is an Indiana code, where home occupations are not an Indiana
That's
code.
the right to farm.
There was a Right to Farm Act.
Correct.
That was in
And it's
Indiana that protects farmers.
Right.
Because people would
I
move
don't
in
know.
close to a hog operation, then complain about the smell and sue for nuisance.
Yeah.
But
Or-
the law stops that.
Yeah. So really, the short answer of this bill is that I think it would get handled like any other complaint of the UDO, where there'd be we would need information from, if someone would just call and say, hey, my neighbor, I can hear vibrations. Can you take a recording? Can you send us videos? Can you send us pictures of what you're seeing and when you're seeing it? And then we handle it that way.
It can be a sticky situation, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they went through the BZA to get approved, then we could have them come back to the BZA and basically, your dad used to call them show cause orders, that
They're
we
not
received
complying with
a
the-
complaint on your BZA approval. You need to prove to the BZA that you aren't doing what the complaint is.
Well, and that brings me to wondering again, what, do we need to have guidelines as far as how much noise is tolerated? how much odor is tolerated and how do you measure the odor and how do you measure even smoke? I complain about
Or
smoke
dust.
drifting across.
Dust,
And dust, yeah.
if people have a long gravel drive. And they're getting 2 box trucks a day.
The sound, you just do
I mean-
decibels and how many ever feet from either the edge of the property or feet from the machine. Probably edge of the property would
Yeah.
make sense. But as far as odor, I don't know what the standards would be for odor.
Well, an example of one in upstate New York with my sister, who's been a vegetarian for 40 years, somebody built a barbecue thing at their home, other side of the trees, but she could smell cooking animals, and she didn't like that. But is that, I mean, the rest of us might go, that's wonderful, but I mean, like you said, Bill, it's, everybody's got their own opinion about what's an odor.
Well, some odors are offensive, some odors aren't, obviously, to the average person.
The average person.
I mean-
She's not average.
Yeah, I don't know. What's your thought?
I'd be inclined to trust the BZA because it's
Yeah.
so circumstantial and they have the ability to, or we don't have to renew it, or they can revoke.
They
right?
can revoke it, yeah.
If they don't feel that they
They're meeting.
qualify, if they're
yeah,
meeting that standard.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I would also think too, and now that it's in my brain of discussions, is that if we would have something come forward that, you know, we would add a condition of approval within that BZA, Frank and Jason, who are on our BZA, that number 9 of home enterprise shall be, blah, blah, I can't think of the word it could say, but there's something legally we could put in there that says, and if any complaints are received, you must come back to the BZA and prove otherwise or
Yeah, I
something.
mean, we could try something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
It is also
Are you guys
substantial.
familiar with Justice Potter's, from the Supreme Court, his view of, you'll know it when you see it, sort of
Okay.
thing, from one of his Supreme Court cases, if you're familiar with that? It can be workable sometimes, and I mean, unless we have some sort of scientific standard to test the odor, I don't know how we would deal with odor. With sound, it's easier because there's decibel meters that
Yeah.
are fairly common.
We had an issue years ago with the gun club in St. Joe with decibels.
For
The
sound.
neighbors,
So how was that resolved, if you remember?
it was just brought before the BZA and it was worked out that they would only shoot on Sunday mornings. They wouldn't shoot before 10 o'clock.
Okay,
And they only had so many, they would give us so many weekends a year that we could have the bigger shoots.
okay.
And they just kind of limited it and it all
Worked its
worked
way out.
As
Worked
far
its
as
way
I know,
out.
everything's
Okay.
working good.
And we did have a plat. Do you remember that plat that we brought forward maybe a year ago? That was right outside of St. Joe, just south of that, the Conservation Club?
Yeah, it was that
We added a
one
covenant on that plat.
Across the road there, yeah.
Was his idea to
it-
put a covenant on that plat that says, basically like the agricultural covenant, there will be no,
Okay, so that everybody that
Can't-
comes in and.
they see that
and-
plat that it's
yeah.
on there that they can't,
They're on notice.
they're on notice, yeah.
Yep,
You're moving in near a gun club.
Yep.
right.
Don't whine about a gun club.
Literally across the street from it, so don't complain.
Oh, they're down the road a little
A little bit, a little bit, a little bit, yeah. So are most of us okay with the changes that are proposed? And then maybe I'm
Yeah.
definitely bringing some language forward on that, those definitions to fix those and make them better.
Yeah, I would say that. Good to bring forward.
Bill, is the nuisance stuff something that you would think, and I'm just throwing it out there, should be removed from the UDO and made it as the BZA would approve it? Or when I read it, I say the home-based business shall, which means in planning and zoning terms, there's a shall and a may. And a may is kind of, you may do this, but shall is like, your dad told you can't do it, you can't do it.
Right.
So, shall not create any offensive noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odors, heat, or glare that would be a nuisance to any neighbor. If the BZA approves a small car repair business and they're painting, by law, they have to have the exhaust. And that fan's going to be going, I assume, 5 or 6 hours a day while they're painting. I wonder if we change that shall to a may. Because the BZA technically couldn't approve that business there with that, because they know that vent is going to make noise. That exhaust fan is going to make noise. I mean, there's probably ways to buffer or tamper that noise, but Andrew,
Well, there's
wondering.
some noises from businesses that we would want to be only in a business zone, right?
and that might be one.
That might be one of them. Certain odors and smells.
they're getting-
people
So if you're
don't want
doing
in a
like small
residential
engine
area.
repair, that's probably fine, but if you're doing body shop repair and painting and grinding and hitting and
Yeah.
all that goes into,
Because this number 9 is
shop.
already in our ordinance
Yeah.
currently,
Yep.
and so years ago, the plan commission
Yep.
and county commissioners decided, and they could make a different decision now, but decided they didn't want small businesses being of such a nature that it's like an industrial area, or
Okay.
light industrial.
I'm with you.
So the shall's probably good.
Like on County Road 35, there's Cook's Body Shop, and they paint and they do all of that kind of stuff, but they've got a big land. I mean, there's no neighbors really close to them.
Yeah.
So wouldn't part of that depend on the size of the property that they were putting it
The
on?
BZA would look at that, the size of the property it is, where the business is, where the business part of it is located, if there's neighbors around.
And I
If
think
they-
they might be zoned
That's what I was
differently,
just-
right? Didn't they get,
Well,
or
on State Road 1, Cook's is
you're talking about 35.
35.
35. They might be zoned
I think
differently,
they're
don't know.
zoned some sort of
I'd have to
business
look.
zoning there, but.
But if they came
Yeah.
for a home occupation, and, those are all factors the BZA would take into account, yeah.
Should there be some home businesses that would be excluded, like a body shop? Because that body shop is going to create a lot of nuisance,
Yeah.
not only in
And we
this-
could add language in here that says these types of businesses would be excluded from
Yes.
home occupations.
I would think that would be appropriate solution.
All right. I like
Well,
that
I'm thinking
idea.
of the one situation that has come up in the county where there's cars parked across the street on somebody's farmland, edge of the road or something. And it's a little bit bigger than what you might anticipate being in a
Bigger.
agricultural zone.
To stay on time, so we can do the Farver rezone, what are the types of home-based businesses you would think, and I'm not, this isn't a definite thing right now, just so I can get my brain working on looking at things that would be excluded.
A body shop be top of my list, I think.
Okay?
What complaints have we received? What types of things have you, any specific complaints you've heard from that would cause you to eliminate them? Or historically, that are problematic?
I can't
or-
say that it have, but it's obviously a body shop can create a lot of nuisance.
Yeah.
And just right up front.
There's a lot of home-based businesses that they start out small, and the next thing they know, they just get bigger, bigger, bigger. And it's that small engine repair that is now has 50 lawnmowers sitting outside of his garage, and
Well, the paint that would be used would be pretty toxic.
Oh, yeah. Automotive paint especially. Isn't-
do you think putting in there something that, like industrial size, I don't know if it's called industrial size exhaust, anything that would require an industrial size exhaust fan? But then I'm thinking of my neighbor that has the industrial size exhaust fan in his garage just to get it cooled down.
Yeah,
you know, is the same thing.
that's probably a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want them to not be safe or healthy while they're doing things either.
Yeah.
I think maybe if we each just come up with
Yeah,
an
we
example
can discuss this a little
and
bit
send
more,
that to
too.
you that we
Yeah.
think might, ought to be exempted,
Yeah.
can we do that? That work? Mine's in.
Well, we addressed, this here, and it's been brought up too, that you mentioned it, you got the person who works on lawnmower. What do we do with the ones that put the lawnmowers and has got 10 or 15 sitting outside? That should be addressed somehow, because there should not, if it's a home business, it should keep the residents
Should still look like a residence. yeah.
residents, yeah.
So they should,
Yeah.
if there is that they should file a complaint with our office,
Yeah, but
and then we go through that process to hopefully get them to comply.
But if you got a home business, you should be working it, so, okay, maybe I have 2 or 3 mowers sitting outside at a time, and I cycle them instead of having 2 or 3 or 10 mowers sitting out there for 10 or 15 days.
If you have a home occupation, you can't have any outdoor storage.
Yeah,
It's
number
supposed to be
7.
conducted
Number
entirely
7
within the
covers
primary
that.
structure.
Yeah,
Right.
home workshop.
And even in
Yeah, but you see I done it too.
everything for display and storage, outdoor display or storage is prohibited. So they shouldn't be displaying or storing anything outside.
Right.
Now, granted, some people probably do, but if it gets to be in excess, that there's 15 lawn mowers, or you have a pile of plumbing pipe,
Auto repair,
or what?
auto repair.
Or auto repair, you have 3 or 4 vehicles that are out there waiting for repair.
15 or 20.
15 or 20, then you get into being against the UDO and you should
Right.
be in compliance. But
And that's where I would think a lot of that stuff would shake itself out with the BZA.
because odds are these uses we're talking about
Right.
will fall not within the home occupation, but within the home
Right,
workshop.
yeah, because
or
if you go
home
back,
enterprise.
using Cook's is C3.
Okay,
So they got a chunk that's C3
that's right, we just.
carved out of
yeah.
their house.
Which means they went through the right process. I
Right.
think they
The
came in
planning
because it
commission.
was under the 2009
That's right.
changes.
That's right.
Then they get put
Now I
back into
remember.
ag or
Yeah,
residential or
there's-
something and had to come back in
Yeah,
again.
one of their parcels is A2 and C3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ms. Lot.
okay. Well, thank you for that. That was helpful. You didn't think so?
No, this is Humphrey's auto repair.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're talking, yeah, we got hand bias.
Are we ready to move on to our petition, or do we need to wait 2 more minutes?
I would wait 2 more minutes because we advertised it at 7 o'clock.
Okay. So can we skip ahead and do our liaison reports and that stuff?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that real quick.
Hands.
Do we have any reports from our cities, counties, or cities, towns, villages, whatever representatives?
Auburn they approved for Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen's going to get torn down and a new one built. So that got approved. And then a somewhat controversial plan to put a Dollar General, or what's called a DG Market, similar to what they have over by Garrett, but smaller. And that'll be at State Road 8, facing State Road 8 and County Road 35. And there's concern from people in that housing addition there behind where the veterinarian, they'll be right next to the vet's office. And the traffic is a little wonky. And they're worried people will be cutting through the housing addition to avoid making a left turn and a left turn kind of thing. But they approved it anyway because they met all the requirements, so kind of had to.
There's been talk of putting a supermarket out there for 20 years, so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna count. I went and
Well,
looked at the
what
one.
what those are, they're
Yeah.
directly to compete with Aldi. That's what that's all about.
Yeah,
The one over at Garrett is the biggest one, because I was at the planning commission when all of that plan and all that came about, but that's a directly to compete with Aldi. And that location over there that's perfect, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I went and checked it out. It was, you know, it had some fresh foods, so that was good.
Yeah,
I think they're just mostly worried about the traffic,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
the way they've got it. But they said they did traffic studies, so don't need a turn lane or anything.
Butler didn't have a meeting. Hamilton had 2 rezones, but they were both in Steuben County. So, no big deal.
Let's see, Waterloo had the comp plan interview on May 3rd. There was only one company, and I don't have the name offhand, that qualified because the second bid came in late. FedEx didn't deliver in time. However, it was not submitted for the grant because there was a technicality and the Plan Commission did not pass a resolution. They approved it in the minutes, but it wasn't adequate to meet the requirements. So they're going to have to resubmit for the third quarter. And they're going to, it'll give them an opportunity to do more community input and have more letters from the community, so it'll strengthen the opportunity to get that grant, the $50,000 grant. And then they also, and then on the 6th, let's see, on the 17th, yesterday, they approved the property in Waterloo that's owned by the redevelopment commission. They approved the plat so that they split off the future well site so that the other property can be approval of the secondary plat, so they were able to, that they can sell that when the right opportunity comes along. They would normally do an administrative split, but because of the way the surveyor surveyed it, it was, it ended up being under the secondary plat subdivision. But that was approved in the updates from Waterloo.
Chris, I did have a question. On one of the rezones in Hamilton, they had a doctor's office as a business, and it was rezoned from agriculture to business, and because the doctor closed the office and it's been vacated for 6 months, they had it go, they said because it was vacated for 6 months, it automatically went from business back to agriculture.
Only if that's in their non-conforming,
Pardon me?
only if that would be in their non-conforming standards or something. If the rezone from when they rezoned the doctor's office land, the Plan Commission could have made a condition that if the doctor's office closes, it reverts back to an agricultural zoning district. I don't know. But typically, your rezones last until they're rezoned again.
Well, then they rezoned it back to residential. It was very confusing. It was business, then they said it went back to agriculture because it was vacated for 6 months.
They could have that in their UDO,
Yeah.
something similar to that.
And then because the owner of the building was there, he wanted it rezoned to residential.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting. Yep.
All right,
Now we.
thank you.
We have a rezone, a map zone amendment, petition 24-14. Chris?
Yeah. Bill, do you want to step out, recuse yourself, please, sir? You can wait outside or you can leave.
I'll leave, just
Okay.
email the results.
All right, I will.
Thanks, so.
Yep.
I will just deny it, make it easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Just so you know what the result is now. You
Yeah,
don't have to worry about it.
Thanks, Bill.
You know, I got a spy in the room, though. I got the
Hey.
room bugs.
I know you did.
I'll come over to the bar and tell you, okay?
We have a petition 24-14 of Jacob Farver, Nicholas Gonzalez, and William and Nancy Hartman requesting a zone map amendment of approximately 3.25 acres from C1 Village Commercial and R2 Medium Density Residential to I2 Low Intensity Industrial, and also requesting a zone map amendment of approximately 12.35 acres from C1 Village Commercial to R2 Medium Density Residential, to A2 Agricultural, and the properties are located at and around 1047 US Highway 6 in Corona. The property that's requesting 3.25 acres from C1 and R2 to I2 Low Intensity Industrial will have a development plan coming forward, hopefully shortly, for a future welding business of Mr. Farver. And then the 12.35 acres from C1 and R2 to agricultural is something that Bill requested so that there's continuity between the rest of his land that's north and this property surrounding it to be agricultural. So you can see on page 2, kind of the location map zoomed out. You can see Corona to the south and fronting US Highway 6 and County Road 9. And then a zoomed in photo on page 3 showing the location of the zone map amendment. Existing zoning map is on page 4. As you can see, the property that is green north of there, that's Bill and Nancy's property. That's currently agricultural. And then you have C1 Village Commercial in that County Road 9 US 6 corner. And then medium density residential kind of in that U shape around the house that's right there. Future land use map, the light blue is the commercial use, as we have discussed before. The future land use map it's kind of more of a guideline, doesn't require certain zoning districts to be located within them. So we're not proposing any change to the future land use map, but just something to take into account when you're looking at a zone map amendment. Page 6, that is not in your packet but was left on your desk. That's a free sheet with no back. That's the one you want to look at. I accidentally forgot to add the red I2 low intensity industrial. Oh, excuse me. Language on there. So basically, Mr. Farver is going to be purchasing land from Bill and Nancy, and then he's going to be purchasing the land from Mr. Gonzalez. So that red color is the low intensity industrial. Again, he's proposing to have a welding shop there. We don't have a site plan yet. Rezones don't require site plans, but he does plan to bring a development plan forward should this get approved. And then the remaining land that appears to not be green but is green is proposed to be A2 agricultural. In your packet has also the different uses between the C1 and the R2 that are existing and the A2 and I2 that are in the I-2 district that Mr. Farver's proposing to have welding. It is a permitted use in our industrial zoning districts for welding. So again, we would look at that development plan when he has that brought forward. The Plan Commission will have to review and approve that. But just FYI. He is here, obviously. He's been here since 6 o'clock. God love him, listening to our fun discussions. If he's got anything he wants to add, or if anyone has any questions for him, I'm sure he would be glad to answer them, but pretty straightforward rezone. If anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Have they got that tire mess cleaned up? Is that all cleaned up
You
now?
want to come up, do your name and address?
My name is Jacob Farber. 13.
Hey, Jake, make sure that light's on. Now repeat yourself.
Jacob Farber.
Thank you.
1353 County Road 19, Waterloo, Indiana. We are trying to take care of the tires. I got 3 trailers, 3 semi-trailers taken out of there already. We just had 2 more brought in yesterday. There's just an outrageous amount of tires. We can only afford to clean up so much. So and then this week is 90, so we're not necessarily working in these trailers. But we are, as much as we can, over there, and people have been dumping over there, so I got caution tape around it, and we're trying to stop people from trespassing at this point, and it's kind of just a nightmare every time we go over there.
Oh, God love you.
We took out, there was one semi-trailer we demolished last weekend. We took it out, have most of the scrap cleaned up off of that. The tires are just the biggest thing, and I have a guy's shop here outside Auburn. We're trying to build a shredder. We're going to shred all the tires, so that's our biggest plan, to recycle them for ourselves. And then, so as soon as the tires are eliminated, we will I'm going to put a Connex box on the property, and we're going to try to start working out of it. We're a mobile welding company, and so we're going to get into doing dumpster repair and roll-off repair. I work on heavy equipment and machines, so we're going to start working out of a Connex building for temporary, and then as we can develop the property, I guess we'll keep moving forward with a big building, and as we can afford it. So.
I was shocked to see how clean that corner looks, because I went by there and saw a lot of those tires gone. So you're doing a good job.
I appreciate it. It is not easy,
No.
and we can't afford to pay anybody to do anything. So I have all 3 trailers I have filled myself, and to put it in perspective, there's about 35,000 pounds of tires in each trailer.
Yep.
So it's not been a great experience.
No.
Yeah, we keep going back and forth on, like, we demolished the semi. There was one semi trailer that was out back. We demolished it, and it was full of tires also. So it made it just like we didn't even do anything so far. We've got about, I think, almost 4,000 tires off the property so far. So, and I bet there's at least that many more to go. So, as long as we can keep people from trespassing and dumping more tires, that's the biggest thing. I've already talked to the Sheriff's Department, and they're trying to help out what they can, but can't be there 24 hours a day, so.
No.
Are there any more questions or comments for Mr. Farver? If she can sit down.
told him not to be too nervous.
Oh, yeah. Yes, should be very nervous. I guess we don't have any more questions, we can move on to Andrew.
All right, we can go through the findings.
I would just acknowledge there's nobody in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
nobody in the audience. So we'll go through these findings. They're proposed until voted on. Jurisdictional findings, application completed and filed on May 6, 2024.
Yes.
Legal notice published in the Star on June 7th and publisher's affidavit received.
Yes.
Certificate of mailing notices sent and receipts given to staff.
Yes.
Non-objection letter from the County Board of Health dated May 10th.
Yes.
Non-objection letter from the County Highway Department dated May 6th.
Yes.
Non-objection letter from the County Soil and Water Conservation District dated May 8th.
Yes.
Non-objection letter from the County Surveyor dated May 13th.
Yes.
The letter from the DeKalb County Airport Authority is not required as this property is not within an airport zoning district or the airport compatibility overlay district. Now, the UDO and statutory matters to consider, there's 5 different ones, and I'll go down through these, and anyone on the Plan Commission can comment at any time on any answers they want to give on this. The goal is to have a comment or discussions on each one to show that we're giving due regard to these. Number 1 is the change in zoning paying reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan.
Are we addressing both rezoning, the zoning for him?
It's the full thing.
And the zoning for Bill and
It's the full area. Yeah.
Nancy Hartman? Well, the subject area of future land use designated for commercial, which on the corner of that corner would be ideal, while your returning ground that was designated as commercial on time back to A1 or A2, is it A2?
A2.
A2, which should be properly zoned that way. So I think it's a yes, I think it's a good thing.
All right. Number 2 is the change in zoning paying reasonable regard to the current conditions and character of the current structures and uses in each district.
I would say yes, the existing development surrounding the properties are residential, commercial, and agricultural in nature. The change in zoning will be consistent with these surrounding properties and current conditions and character of the current structures and land uses.
All right. Number 3 is the change in zoning paying reasonable regard to the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. And we're talking about 2 different zoning districts here.
I say yes, it's to change it for the welding business and to return the other property back to agricultural is desirable.
You kind of got a commercial lot here and an ag area behind it.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4 is the change in zoning paying reasonable regard to the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction.
I would say yes. I don't think it's going to negatively impact either zoning areas.
Yep. Number 5 is a change in zoning paying reasonable regard to responsible development and growth. Are you being responsible as a planning commission here?
Yes, I agree that this is supporting responsible growth in that area.
All right. Staff here is recommending a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the requested zone map amendments. Should there be any conditions or commitments made by the Plan Commission and adopted by the county commissioners, they shall be written and recorded in the office of the DeKalb County Recorder. And then it's up to you to vote one way or the other, or have someone have a motion.
The motion favorable for petition 24-14.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a favorable recommendation for this rezone. If there's no other comments, we could proceed to a roll call vote.
Angie Holt,
Yes.
Frank Palver,
Yes.
Bill Van Wy,
Yes.
Tyler Lanning,
Yes.
Sandy Harrison,
Yes.
Susan Davis,
Yes?
Jerry Yoder.
Yes.
Jason Carnahan.
Yes. Okay. Seeing as how there's no public in attendance, I'm guessing there's no comments from public in attendance. So that is all we have. And we will adjourn.